Yo, what's up, everybody? Welcome back. Have you guys ever gotten in your head during a game session or afterwards thinking things like, are my players having fun? Did I make the right call? Was the game too slow? Or maybe I shouldn't have messed up that important rule. If you've ever felt like you could do better as a GM after a game session, trust me, you're not alone. For me, transitioning from Pathfinder First Edition to Pathfinder Second Edition ended up being more challenging than I thought it would. And that has nothing to do with the rules or the game itself. It was all self inflicted. I spent years immersed in the intricate rules and mechanics of First Edition. Everything in First Edition made sense to me. I was very comfortable jumping right back into it. About a year ago, I came back to playing Pathfinder after a 9 year hiatus, and Pathfinder Second Edition had already been out for 4 to 5 years. To me, it was new and shiny, and it still is new and shiny. I am very new to Pathfinder Second Edition. After not playing for almost 10 years, I have to admit that I am a new GM again. And that is something that I didn't realize that I needed to do at first when I jumped back into GMing. Once I made the decision to start GMing Pathfinder 2E, I believed my experience with first edition would make the transition easier, and it did. It definitely did. It helped me a lot. However, the nuances of second edition and mainly my approach to learning the new system after so long of being away brought unexpected challenges. This journey has re-taught me valuable lessons about adapting, communicating, and prioritizing fun at my table, which were all things that I had learned and implemented during my time playing and GMing Pathfinder First Edition, but I lost sight of those things as I focused on learning a new system. At first, I underestimated just how different 2E would feel despite its shared lineage with First Edition. It wasn't just about learning new yet very similar rules, it was about understanding a new design philosophy, which I hadn't had to do for a very long time. Having played and GM'd Pathfinder 1E for as long as I did, I knew the rules almost as well as the back of my hand. I didn't have to look things up and constantly adjudicate rules. And if there was things that I didn't remember, I could improvise rulings with like total confidence, knowing that they wouldn't disrupt the balance of the game. This deep familiarity with 1E gave me the confidence to approach second edition with the assumption that I could simply translate my knowledge. On the surface, Pathfinder 1E and 2E are very similar, but the systems do have different and distinct mechanics and philosophies despite their shared DNA. 2E introduced me to new structures for skill activities, tighter balance with the proficiency system, and different approaches to gameplay, such as the three action economy. My confidence in 1E led me to underestimate my own learning curve, and I quickly realized that my improvised rulings, due to my lack of familiarity with the new rules, didn't always land as well as they could have, or they didn't make sense for the 2E system. Things like I was letting my players use swift actions in combat. I was giving them bigger circumstance bonuses than I should have. I didn't realize at first how big of a difference a +2 bonus would make to the game over time. And it didn't help that for my first experience as a new GM to second edition, I was running Rise of the Rune Lords and converting it from first edition to second edition. I wasn't properly converting the first edition magic items, and a lot of them I was just using as written from first edition. All of this made the game very easy for my players, like so easy. I was asking myself, do I need to adjust the encounters to make them harder? And then that's what I did. I made adjustments and tweaks to the creatures and the encounters, and next thing I knew, every encounter my players were going down and they were so close to death and they became extremely hard. And as a GM, I just felt like I was all over the place. I had lost that confidence that I once had. What I initially perceived as minor differences turned out to be fundamental changes, and I found myself not having to unlearn Pathfinder First Edition, but like make room in my brain and compartmentalize Pathfinder Second Edition. After I had these realizations, I started to become hyper focused on mastering the rules of Second Edition. I wanted to ensure that I was running the game properly and staying true to the system's mechanics. Every action and adjudication felt like it had to be perfect, as if I were proving my competence to my players, but mostly I was trying to prove it to myself. However, this focus on correct rulings had unintended consequences. The game slowed down as I frequently second guessed my decisions and paused the game to reference rules. The immersive flow of the story and the natural pace of combat got disrupted. What should have been an engaging and dynamic experience for my players became a series of what I felt were stop and go moments, pulling everyone out of the adventure, including myself. This perfectionist mindset created unnecessary pressure on myself. By trying to avoid mistakes, I inadvertently was highlighting the mistakes, turning what should have been a minor speed bump into a full stop of the game. I was so focused on the rules and thought that I just needed to master the rules again. So I was reading the player core constantly. I was in the GM core reading as much as I could. I dove into Pathfinder YouTube videos. And thanks to all the amazing GM advice that can be found on YouTube, I came to the realization that I had forgotten one of the most important things a GM can do, which is communicate with my players. I subconsciously wanted to maintain the image of a confident and capable GM, so I never admitted that I was still learning a new system to my players. This lack of communication inadvertently created what I perceived as tension at the table. And after the session, I would be asking myself those questions. Did my players have fun? Did I make the right call? Did I slow the game down again? When I finally had an honest conversation with my group, which was about 8 game sessions in, I explained that I was still getting a handle on the intricacies of Pathfinder 2 and that there would likely be mistakes along the way, and that I wanted to stick as closely to the rules as written as possible while we were still learning the system. I reassured them and myself that as long as we were having fun, it was okay to get some rules wrong. We could note discrepancies, look up the correct rulings after the session and apply them moving forward. And this conversation and openness transformed the dynamic at the table. After sharing my concerns with my players, I was surprised to learn that all my worries were self imposed. It was all in my head. My players were, in fact, enjoying the game. My players are all new to Pathfinder 2e as well, and they said they appreciated my effort that I was putting into learning the system, and they were happy to be part of the process. While some did admit that the pace had slowed down at times, they also pointed out that those moments, those are natural in any TTRPG session. My players didn't feel the same tension or pressure or frustration that I had been putting on myself. This conversation was a turning point for me. It reminded me that TTRPGs are a collaborative experience, not GM performances. The fun of the game doesn't hinge on perfect execution, but on the shared stories, laughter, and the challenges that we get to face together. Hearing their perspective helped me let go of the unrealistic expectations that I had placed on myself. It also deepened my appreciation for my players' patience and their enthusiasm, which made the learning process feel like a shared adventure rather than my solitary struggle. After thinking about the whole experience, I realized that my initial approach to coming back to GMing was driven by ego and fear. I didn't want to let my players down or compromise their enjoyment of the game, but mistakes are a natural part of learning, and in TTRPGs, they can actually enhance the experience. By embracing the inevitability of the errors, I was able to shift my mindset and focus on what truly matters, the shared journey of storytelling and discovery. This shift in perspective also encouraged my players to engage more actively. They became partners with me in the learning process, helping me to look up rules and offering feedback when something felt unclear. The table transformed from a space of performance to one of collaboration. By accepting my mistakes, I not only improved my confidence, but also created a more inclusive atmosphere. This mindset turned challenges into stepping stones, allowing both myself and my players to grow. And for the past 8 months of GMing this game, these changes didn't just improve our sessions, they revitalized my spirit for our games. So switching from Pathfinder 1E to 2E was a humbling experience that reminded me of the importance of adaptability and also communication with my players. Running a great game isn't about flawless execution. It's about creating space where everyone at the table feels engaged, valued, and is excited to play the game. If you take anything from this video, don't be like me. If you're transitioning to a new system, whatever system it may be, don't be afraid to admit that you're still learning. Let your players know that mistakes will be made, and that's okay. The goal isn't to run a perfect game, it's to create memorable moments together. And as long as you're having fun, you're doing a good job as a GM. No system mastery or perfect ruling can replace the joy of telling stories together, and that's what truly makes the game worth playing. So if any of you guys have ever gone through anything similar to this as a GM, let me know in the comments. What's your story? Let me know. I appreciate everybody that watched this video. Thank you so much. And remember, happy GMing.